Hi there, I am the Reverend Danny Crosby, a Unitarian minister serving congregations in Altrincham and in Urmston in the northwest of England. And I offer this devotion as a balm for the heart, for the mind, for the spirit, and for the soul. And it's titled The Opposite of Schadenfreude, Rejoicing in the Good Fortune of Others. Generally, I take a positive view of social media, as I do most aspects of human interaction. Yes, there are negative, but I find that when things are used in a positive way, they enhance our lives. That said, there are downsides, and they can be misused. And the aspect of social media I've struggled with the most is what was once called Twitter and is now called X. I've never really got it actually, got into it in this what it's actually about. In fact, beyond posting my blog and these videos, I rarely interact on it. There is one person though that I love on Twitter. She's wonderful. This is Susie Dent from Dictionary Corner from the TV programme Countdown. She's wonderful. She's informative. She's funny. She's warm-hearted. I've learnt so much from her in recent years as she's shared lost words, often as a way of kind of subtle, gentle, humorous social commentary. It was Susie who brought despair back into public consciousness. That kind of word that means a new hope, a fresh hope. The opposite of despair, really. But something new, yet it's a lost old word, and she's brought it back, certainly into my consciousness, and I've tried my best to bring it into the consciousness of others. Certainly helped me in dark times. But she's also shared other lost positive words that are the opposite of the negative versions that have remained in common usage. Words like gruntled, meaning happy or contented, in good humour, the opposite of disgruntled, or gormful, meaning sensible, not foolish or senseless, the opposite of gormless, or ruthful, meaning feeling or expressing pain or sorrow for the wrongdoing or causing offence, which is the opposite of ruthless, or feckful, meaning efficient or effective, the opposite of feckless. It's interesting and a little saddening, really, that only the negative versions of these words have survived in common usage. The positives have disappeared. Sad, that, I find. Another example of the loss of positives is the word resentment. I resent the word, actually. And what I really resent is how the word resentment is used. The word literally means to re-feel, to re-sense something. That said, when we feel something wonderful or something positive, we don't say that we resent it. And there's no other word in common usage describe a positive way of resensing something in the same strong way that we talk about resentment in a negative sense. And I think that's sad too. There's another word in common usage that we don't have an English equivalent of, but we use it in the English language, and that word is Schadenfreude. We don't have a word in common usage anyway. There used to be a word, actually, the equivalent in the English language called epicaracy, or something pronounced like that. My pronunciation is not the best. I'm a Yorkshireman after all. But again, that word's disappeared. Now, Schadenfreude is the experience of pleasure, joy, or self-satisfaction that comes from learning or witnessing the troubles, the failures, the pain, or the humiliation of another. A good example would be when a rival football team loses and you rejoice in the misfortune, or the political party you are opposed to suffers a humiliating loss. Someone falls from grace in that sense. Or a bit closer to home, perhaps. You see someone tripping over in the street, stumbling, and provided, of course, they don't hurt themselves too much, because it's a kind of, in some ways, it's a gentle kind of pleasure in that way, and a naughty, guilty pleasure, really. But when social media is at its worst, it seems to be powered by Schadenfreude. Certainly when I go through Twitter or X, Schadenfreude is everywhere. Such a negative space, really. Maybe it's worse than Schadenfreude, actually, because it's not gentle. Now, Schadenfreude is derived from Schaden, meaning damage or harm, and Freud, meaning joy. We think of it as a joy in someone's misfortune. Now, what's frustrating to me is that there isn't an equivalent word for the opposite of Schadenfreude, say the joy in someone's good fortune. And we've all lived through difficult times in recent years, and as a result, there are folk out there trying to find ways to spread a little joy in the small things, perhaps, maybe not the big things, to share good news as an antidote to the negativity that is often abound. And as a result, people have begun using a new word, a neologism, which is Freudenfreude, or Freudenfreude. And this seems to be the opposite of Schadenfreude. They've kind of invented a word, if you like. Freudenfreude is described as positive empathy. It is the ability to feel someone else's positive emotions as if they were your own. Deep empathy, if you like. There was a small study published in the journal Psychological Science in August 2021 that showed that this type of empathy helps people to become kinder, more resilient, and more satisfied with their lives. And it creates a kind of sense of gratitude on a deep level. It brings people closer together too. So it's an antidote to self-centeredness, and social media at its worst can increase this insular, self-centered way of seeing life. It's a bit like we're living in little metal boxes, like we're living our whole lives in cars, really, and driving a car can often bring out the worst in us because we're kind of trapped in a little box, and social media can do that at its worst. It can bring people together at its best also. Now, anyone can tap into the power of Freudenfreude. All you have to do is look for the good things happening to people around you, in your life. Look for the small examples of good news, not the big bad news that you'll see on X or printed and TV news, not the big stuff often, the little stuff. They don't tell us the good news. We have to create it ourselves. Look around you. Celebrate other people's small successes. When you talk with the people in your life, ask them about their joys and share in their joys. Do not be afraid to share your good news too. Do not hide your light. Let it shine for all to see. Be a bearer of the good news. It helps to build community, something so needed in our ever more isolating and isolated lives. Now, this is not to say we avoid one another's troubles. Freudenfreude is about developing empathy, and you can't have positive empathy without feeling other people's pain too. So it's not just about ignoring the bad news. That said, when we say we feel what we feel, we must feel positive as well as painful emotions of others. To empathise is to feel everything in its wholeness. To feel with another is to feel with another wholly. That is true empathy. Something that people are afraid of, I think. We shouldn't be. It's what brings us alive. The Spirit lives to set us free, and I believe it lives in true empathy. Now, when I think of someone who truly exemplified Freudenfreude, I think of a lady called Angela Fowler, a beautiful human being, a member of one of my congregations. She comes straight to mind when I think of this word. Sadly, Angela died on New Year's Eve. I'm currently preparing her funeral service. What wonderful things I'm hearing, and what wonderful things I experienced through knowing her. She was a beautiful example of someone who encouraged and enjoyed the achievements of others. She did so much herself actually, despite some real, very real struggles in life. She certainly lived a life of gratitude, and she made the most of every little thing that life gave to her. Not though that Angela would have used the word Freudenfreude. She was an expert in language actually, speaking perfect French and fluent in German. So I don't want to insult her by not using the correct language here. Not that she'd mind too much actually, she always encouraged me in my ministry and forgave all my terrible pronunciations, as she would have done if she was here to listen to this. I don't speak perfect English or perfect anything. I am what I am. But thankfully, actually, we don't have to, because there is another word that means pretty much what Freudenfreude means. This is an ancient Sanskrit word, mudita. Mudita means vicarious joy or sympathetic joy. It's used in Buddhism actually to highlight the importance of feeling joy for others' good fortune, even if, or especially because of, you don't as an individual benefit from that. Again, mudita suggests something community-centred rather than something merely self-centred. And there's a similar word in Hebrew too. This is thurgun, which describes the ungrudging pleasure one takes in someone else's good fortune, a kind of generosity of spirit, an unselfish, empathetic joy that something good has happened or might happen to another person. I think both thurgun and mudita apply to Angela, and I am sure as someone who loved interfaith work and interaction, it speaks powerfully to her personal soul. She would have loved it. But I'm going to use Freudenfreude, just because that's the way I am. It's a new word, and I like new, fresh things. It's a fresh hope, if you like. It's a form of, maybe this word itself is a risper, a fresh hope that we might bring something good to our world that needs it, spread some joy. I experienced a great deal of Freudenfreude, mudita or thurgun if you like, if you prefer, last weekend actually. On Friday night I was at a good friend Ian Eto's album launch at Manchester Art Gallery. It was wonderful to be with Ian and another friend Jules who plays in his band, and countless other people from their lives as they performed, and we all joined together in celebration. I played a small role actually in leading a kind of singing meditation before the gig, just to ground everybody, and apparently it really helped. So I really played a role in their joy and their celebration by helping them to connect truly to what they were doing. And it was lovely to play a small part in that. Now, both of my friends, Ian and Jules, have had their struggles in life, and it was wonderful to see them shine their lights so bright and to be together with others, sharing in their joy. And then on Saturday morning, the very next morning, a little tired from the celebrations of the night before, I was invited to open the proceedings at the Altrincham Court Leet, to which I serve as chaplain. During the proceedings, Barbara Thackeray, a congregational member again of mine, was made a Freeman of Altrincham. This was in recognition for years of dedicated service raising money for St Anne's Hospice, following the death of her sister. Barbara took up running about 10 years ago in her mid-70s. She runs at 10k at least twice a week and runs in events around the area raising money. Apparently she's improving, now in her mid-80s. She's become quite a celebrity actually in the northwest of England, appearing all over the local news on television, and she's even become a star of an Adidas advert with Mo Salah, the Liverpool footballer. He's at the beginning of the video, and then at the very end we see this beautiful image of Barbara from behind running, And then the final image is this beautiful, shining, smiling face, shining so bright as she runs along, sharing the joy of living, doing good, shining her light so bright for all to see, encouraging others to do good. There aren't enough people doing good. It's a sad indictment on modern society that we see do-gooding as a negative thing. It used to mean that people did good. That can't be and yet people call people you do-gooder. Again, a word that has come to mean something negative when all it meant was something positive. It was such a joy last Saturday morning sharing in Barbara's recognition. It was so wonderful sharing with these people who are a rich part of my life and the lives of other people too. Her family were all there to share in her joy. And there was a round of applause at the service the next day. It was lovely. It's so wonderful to be sharing the joy of others' achievement. Yes, it is really important, it is vital to be with other people in their struggles, but also their joys. This to me is what loving community is all about. I just wish we had a word in common usage to describe such a feeling and to shine the light bright on all, to shine that feeling of sharing and shining that light. Why is there not a word? It's sad, isn't it? It lowers our humanity that we can't say it out loud. So I'm going to join in with those who are using the word Froud and Freud. Let's make it the word of the year this year. Let's spread it. Let that light shine. Now, some of you who have followed my videos in the past may recall I was deeply affected in a positive way by Rutger Bregman's book, Humankind. In 2020 it came out, the spring of 2020. It came out just as we went into lockdown due to COVID. It was a brilliant book and an antidote to a great deal of negativity about human nature being peddled at the time. He offered a different perspective and suggested, as many have suggested before actually, that if we only portray a low opinion and expectation of humanity, then this is what we will see and all that we will experience. In fact, we'll look for negativity. The problem is that we underestimate our capacity, our human capacity, and we only really promote bad news and bad behaviour. Look at X and look at media, television and newsprint. Now, one of the solutions he suggested is that we should come out of the closet about the good things that we do for other people, like Barbara does. That we need to learn to celebrate doing good, being do-gooders, if you like. We need to promote this. I see echoes of Froud and Freud in this proposal, but we don't have a word, do we? Now, this probably sounds a little shocking, as it seems to go against the grain of what we're taught to do, to not boast about the good that we and others do. But we need to let our light shine so that people can see another example other than what we hear and read about in the printed news, in the television news, and often that's promoted through the algorithms of social media. As Bregman himself highlighted in that wonderful book. Unfortunately, this reticence works as a nocebo. When you disguise yourself as an egoist, you reinforce other people's cynical assumptions about human nature. Worse, by cloaking your good deeds, you place them in quarantine, where they can't serve as an example for others. And that's a shame, because Homo Puppy's secret superpower is that we're so great at copying one another. So if we shine our light and show our good deeds, others will be encouraged to do the same. And human beings, what he calls Homo Puppy, if you like actually, it's ingrained in us to copy, to do. So if all we see is negativity, if all we promote is negativity, that's what people will copy. but we need to let our light shine for the good that we do, for all to see. For, as someone said 2,000 years ago at the beginning of their first sermon, to the crowd gathered, he said, "You are the light of the world, so let that light shine." He didn't claim he was, that humanity is. So all our lives depend on shining our light bright. And I suspect the same applies with Froud and Freud. Let's come out of the closet about the good that we do. Let us learn to celebrate the good fortune of others. Let us hold up these lights and share in each other's good news. You never know, we might just begin to change our world and become a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful antidote to that prevailing cynicism that others prefer to promote around this our world. Let's spread it. Let us not hide the good in ourselves and each other. Let us not deny the dark. Let us not deny what is wrong in this our world. Of course not. It's there, of course it is. But it's not all that's there. There is goodness, there is light, there is joy, and good things do happen for us and for each other. Let that light shine. Feed it within each of us. Encourage it to come out. Spread it like wildfire. So I'm going to end this devotion with a classic story, one I've told many times before, one I'm sure you're familiar with. It's a story that speaks powerfully to me about human nature and the nature of life and existence, actually. That each of us has the capacity for good and the capacity for wrong within all of us. For both, we have the capacity for Schadenfreude and the capacity for Freudenfreude, if you like. But what matters is what aspect of ours and others' humanity we shine a light on. The story is titled Two Wolves. Here we go. So one winter's evening, whilst gathered round a blazing campfire, an old Sioux Indian chief told his grandson about the inner struggle that goes on inside people. "You see," said the old man, "this inner struggle is like two wolves fighting each other. One is evil, full of anger, envy, jealousy, sorrow, regret, greed, arrogance, self-pity, guilt, resentment, inferiority, lies, deceit, false pride, superiority, and ego. And the other one," he continued, while he poked the fire with a stick, so that the fire crackled, sending the flames clawing at the night sky. "The other one is good, full of joy, peace, love, hope, serenity, humility, kindness, benevolence, empathy, generosity, truth, compassion, and faith." For a few minutes his grandson pondered his grandfather's words, and then he asked, "So which wolf wins, grandfather?" "Well," said the old wise chief, his lined face breaking into a wry smile, "the one that you feed. The one that you feed is the one that wins." So what are you going to feed today? Our lives, our world depends on what we feed. Amen. So I'm going to end this devotion with some final words of blessing. You know, we need to bless more, and we can all bless, and we bless when we give ourselves wholeheartedly to life. God of our hearts, bless each and every one of us as we return back to life, back to reality. Be with us as we face the quandaries, fears and puzzles of the coming days. Send your peace amongst us and through our troubled world. Help us to be there for those in pain. And help us also to see the good, to celebrate the joy in our lives and the lives of each and every one of us. Help us shine our light so bright for all to see. And may we carry this love with us. And may as we reach out our hands in loving and care, as we shine our light so bright, and may we do so in all that we feel, in all that we think, in all that we say, and in all that we do. Go in love, go in peace. Amen.